Why don't we get started? Today I'm speaking with Dylan Patel, the founder and CEO and chief analyst of SemiAnalysis. It's a leading research and consulting firm for the AI infrastructure and buildouts. Within tech circles, you're very famous. But in case anybody joined my live who's not from tech circles, can you tell me what is SemiAnalysis and why is it so influential?
Sure. So semi-analysis, what we aim to do is sort of research the key economic reality of our time, which is the AI build-outs, right? So we're tracking all the way from the models, their competitiveness, their architectures on a technical basis, down to what's the cost to serve them and inference and the training, down to what are they being run on, right? All the infrastructure, the data centers, the GPUs, detailed work on the architecture there, and then we go further down to the fabs and the equipment that makes them, and all the geopolitics and technological questions surrounding them. So we're trying to track, the hardware world of AI infrastructure, and through that we have various articles, we have data sets, we have consulting, and that's sort of what semi-analysis focuses on. Actually, this week we find that we hit 50 people. So having started it 5 years ago, to now, and I've hired my first person 2.5 years ago. We've now grown to 50 people just completely organically. So it's been a hell of a ride, right? And Substack's been a big part of that.
That's fantastic. Congrats. Does it feel different? I mean, I feel like 5 years ago, this felt like sort of an interesting niche topic that the real ones cared about. And now people are looking and saying, hey, this AI build out is driving a substantial fraction of all economic growth. Does it feel different than it did 5 years ago?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When I mean, like, as you mentioned, right, it's a substantial fraction of economic growth, depending on who you ask. It's anywhere from 25% to 75% of the current quarter's economic growth. That's like insane for the US. And yeah, I mean, like, I've been obsessed with the topics of, hardware and semiconductors, AI, et cetera, for, more than a decade. And so it's quite impressive or interesting that people care a lot about it now. Before it was just like, one random obsession, and there's tons of people out there who have like their random obsession, right? Some people are obsessed with, I mean, just go to Reddit and you can see there's tons of obsessions. Go to Substack, there's tons of newsletters with random obsessions, and it kind of just blew up because of I think the hard work we do and the technical and then the business aspects, and it's been really sick.
That's awesome. It's kind of like you won the obsession lottery. Like you were obsessed with this thing, and now it's become the most important thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah. How much of it is luck versus how much of I mean, to be clear, right? Like, semiconductors were the big obsession, and then AI became an obsession. And then it only like, the focus on AI grew and grew and grew, and then other obsessions developed, right? Like obsessions around data centers, obsessions around power. I never cared about power really. Like, I thought nuclear fission was cool. I'd watch some videos on it and fusion and like all this, but like, now we're spending hundreds of hours researching the different types of natural gas engines, right? Turbines and reciprocating engines. So it's like the obsession shifts with the tide. So I won't say it's pure clarity, but it is there's a large amount of the thing I was obsessed with initially, which is gaming GPUs and mobile phones turning into everything that it is today, is definitely some part lucky, some part skill.
Definitely. So you've gone from niche obsession to world beating topic. You've gone from sort of solo act to building a team of 50. You left Substack. Now you're back. Why'd you leave, and why was it the right time to come back?
Yeah, so I've been on Substack two different times. I didn't start on Substack. I had my own WordPress website. Then I came to Substack because it was just so easy, right? And the growth engine was there, and the news, like I was using Mailchimp or something for emails before that, and it was completely useless. People didn't sign up, and then came to I ran both in parallel for a while, and it was clear like Substack just kept skyrocketing in terms of email growth, and so then I just switched over to Substack fully, and then I launched monetization. So I was doing semi-analysis for a year and a half full time before I actually launched monetization with Substack. And then that really took off within just a handful of months. It got to a few $100,000 of revenue, and I was like, "Holy crap!" And then I was able to start hiring. And then I left right when we hit a few million of revenue, right? And more of the revenue was coming from not Substack. The reason was like, hey, Substack takes 10%. Like that's a lot of money, right? Also, Substack doesn't have all the customization we need. Right. And at the time, I was like, instead of splitting the site, let's just move it all off. And so I went back to WordPress with a custom integration, still using Stripe and all these things, but, having to manage entitlements and all that on my own. And, a lot of the business still resides off of Substack, but it's clear for the newsletter, right? There is no better place than Substack, right? Like, it's sort of like I mentioned, growth was sort of like this, in terms of like email capture. And then I added Substack and like growth went like this, and then I left Substack and it went back to like this. The email capture. It was a little bit better than the first rendition because we had, people working on SEO and all these things at my firm. But then as soon as I come back to Substack, it's like I don't know what you guys do. It's magic. Like there's just so much, so many. There's people who I've met in person who read the newsletter who did not realize they weren't paid subs, and then they subscribed when we moved back to Substack. And it's like, how, like, like you're an avid reader. You like walked up to me and told me you're a fan, and you didn't realize you're a paid sub. Like, how is this possible? These are like obvious people that should be subscribed, and they're not subscribed. And then obviously so the discovery engine of Substack is just I don't know what you guys have done. It's magic. But yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Is like moving back to Substack is, hey, there is all this institutional business we do, and that is the majority of the business now. Substack definitely helped launch it, right? Because, the first sort of initially it was all consulting on my end, and then it became, hey, how do I like do one piece of work and send to many people? And that was the newsletter. That was the paid newsletter with Substack. And then it kept scaling, and it became, here's all these data sets that we're selling to companies, which didn't necessarily fit within the Substack model. But then, the discovery engine has and always will be the newsletter, right? Sending out a lot of insightful work for free or for paid subscribers. Will always be the discovery engine for people to be like, holy crap, SemiAnalysis is awesome. Here's all the things they can do. Oh, wow, they have a data set on every data center in the world and what's going on there. Sick, I'm going to buy it, right? Or I'm going to go through the like formal enterprise process of buying it. But the discovery engine of Substack is undeniable, and that's what you guys do so well. And so it makes sense to come back and keep the free emails and paid emails sort of growing at a rate that you just cannot get when you host your own website. And like I tried really hard, right? Like, we had multiple people working on it, right? But or we would be at the top of Google SEO in cases, and still the click through and ads on emails and paid subs would be so tiny versus with our newsletter versus when we were at Substack, where, yes, again, we're at the top of SEO for Google, or in some cases we'll be more often at the top of Google SEO. But it's just, I don't know, it's a magic what you guys do to capture emails and paid subs.
I'm really glad to hear it. And it's cool. It sounds like sort of the newsletter is the sort of the cultural top of funnel for your whole business. This is the place where people are finding out. They're realizing that you're the most important, you and your team are the most important figure in this space. And then that's turning into kind of like it helps drive the whole rest of the business. Um, One topic that maybe a little bit of an obsession of mine is this idea I have of media founders. Because within sort of like the tech universe, you have people who are founders. And then I see this trend that's happening where there's people that have that same level of ambition, that same sense of wanting to build something, uh, and who are able to build things that are either wholly or partially media businesses. Um, do you see yourself as a founder? And what are your ambitions going into the future?
Yeah, I think media's in a really tricky place, right? And you guys have a similar thesis, but traditional media doesn't work, right? Ads have always been a challenging business model. As forms took off, that took a lot of the ad discovery away from these traditional papers. You can't, physical media doesn't work much with terms of magazine. You have and then you have like all of the like interesting work ends up being all the talent leaves because there's not enough money in like ad supported media, and now you have AI, right? And like AI summarizes your stuff, for Google, and it's like, oh wow, like you're really, or a ChatGPT does, you're really cooked, right? Like there's no way for traditional media to survive, and it gets tone deaf, right? Very fast. The only way that media works is it's like decentralized and it's like very passionate people, right? It's not someone who's like doing a 9 to 5. It's someone who lives and breathes that niche topic, whether it's something about politics, technology, business, finance, you know, art, whatever it is. There's all sorts of creators out there who have done this, right? And so YouTube was the first one to sort of break the media grounds, but video is not always the best discovery engine. And I think Substack, has really done something interesting there, where it enabled people to monetize their business in a way, or one, get the eyeballs, and two, monetize their business in a way that it's actually sustainable, right? There have been other people who've broken the bounds, like Ben Thompson at Stratechery. He broke the bounds of media and was maybe one of the first newsletters that like really launched a career in a platform. But since then, it's just really hard to do. It's how do you make that easy? How do you get the discovery engine going? Because that's important. And so media is changing. There's neo media, there's decentralized media, whether it's and a lot of times there's pervasive interest, right? For these media founders, right? One, if you have an audience, you can monetize it in two ways. One is you can just try and like pump random shit. So you see this on Instagram, right? People pump like garbage clothing, or people pump like stuff they don't actually use for money, and that's a thing. But then your audience doesn't actually trust you. Whereas Substack enables like a different form of media, which is my reader is the one that pays me, right? I am accountable to them, and them for it's really um, that work that's done is what's really really important for people to focus in on. And so I myself, right, like I've been posting about semiconductors since I was 12 online, right? I was moderating Reddits and stuff. I was doing posts on Reddit. It was mostly hobbyists until one day I got fed up with and I had blogs that I'd written anonymously until one day I got fed up with my job, and I was like, screw it, I'm just going to do it under my own name. And it really got a lot of like traction, and I didn't even realize it could be a career right at the time. But then people started offering to pay me just because I was using my name. And at the time I was on WordPress, I was just using my name. I was writing interesting content. People were like, hey, can we pay you for XYZ? And it worked, right? People wanted to reach out. But that was only scalable to some extent, right? And because I had to work a really good business sense, I grew up in a small business. But then once I moved to Substack and I enabled paid subs, I didn't have to think about anything, right? It was like I make good content, money came, right? Now that scaled to be, and it has scaled to be multi-million dollar Substack, revenue, right? Obviously I built a lot of business beyond that, but even that is like good enough for people to cover, significant portions of the world, right? Whether it's politics or news or technology or business or finance. That's a real career for at least the top platform makers, but there's a longer tail of people who are making, couple $100,000, and that's great. That's more than enough money, or even tens of thousands of dollars. And actually, because it's their passion, it's worthwhile doing, right? So I do consider myself like to some extent a media, right? The newsletter is media. Now the vast majority of the business is no longer media, but media, media can spawn all sorts of businesses beyond just media. And so we've seen that, right? In the past, there's, some of the largest VCs are actually, they were previously media companies, right? So there's all sorts of different stuff out there that you can do once you have an audience and you have a sustainable business model, which sort of lets you be a passion project worker, right? And that's sort of what I really appreciate about Substack is it's enabled that.
Awesome. Well, last question. What are your ambitions for the future and how can we help?
Yeah, I think my ambitions for the future are to continue to expand out SemiAnalysis' purview, right? Initially, I was focused on semiconductors and fabs, and because of that, that was great. And then AI was, I had AI posts every once in a while. I was lucky enough that the day ChatGPT released, I released a post called that was about the training cost of GPT-3, right? It was just like a coincidence. I liked AI, but it wasn't like my only obsession. I'd done some AI in school and things like that, but it wasn't my only obsession. obviously that because AI was the most interesting thing once ChatGPT released in the world, it quickly became the obsession. But now, like, the ambitions are like continuing to spawn down various supply chains, right? So more and more on the software layer, more and more on the adoption of AI, right? So we've got like data sets that we're working on and selling there around tokenomics, data sets around data centers. Tons of work there, right? I didn't care about data centers until it became a problem for deploying AI, right? I didn't care about energy until it became a problem for deploying data centers, right? Didn't care about how natural gas combined cycle reactors worked and the supply chains for that until energy became a problem, right? And so, like, all of the obsessions of semi-analysis are, AI is the most transformative and interesting technology of our time. I want to work on transformative and interesting things. I like supply chain. I like technology. Where are these innovations happening to boost AI through supply chain, through technology? What are the limiting factors? And so we chase that, whether it's energy or adoption of enterprise AI, or anything up and down the stack. Of course, the core of semiconductors is still there, right? We didn't post about fabrication for a while, but that was a conscious effort. It's like, hey guys, we're just not posting enough about fabrication. So we did 2 posts about fabrication of semiconductors this week, right? And it's great, like, to be able to rotate through all these different topics, whether it's energy or data centers or models or adoption of AI or fabrication of semiconductors. And it hits different audiences, and you continue to garner interaction. And finding ways to make that interesting, what's going on in supply chain, and then also like more and more around data sets, consulting, right? Because that's the main business of semi-analysis now, is the data sets and consulting. Whereas the newsletter is the cultural phenomenon that everyone sort of follows and reads. And so tokenomics, the word is like one of those things, but there's many other areas that, like, I don't know what rabbit hole myself or anyone who works for me wants to dive down, right? Someone on my team is obsessed now with like how much debt certain companies can raise, and the debt is like, go for it, dude. Like, if that's your obsession, go for it. And it turns out, like, hey, there's a lot of interesting things going on with Meta raising tens of billions of dollars of debt. Like recently, right? Like yesterday, I believe they issued the bond. But like, it's like, whatever rabbit hole there is in this AI infrastructure, AI adoption, this next generation, this next economic boom, I want to be chasing it. And whether that's through writing newsletter posts, robotics as well, right? We've been chasing robotics a lot too. We've done a handful of posts there. It's whatever transforms the economy and the supply chains behind it and the technology behind it is what we want to do. And so that's what we're focused on. Yeah.
Sounds like you're going to keep following your obsessions. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Substack is the reason why it's been enabled to do it, right? Like, starting off with Substack. And so, thank you so much for that, right? And that's why we're back, right? Is because it's clearly the best platform. Even though, a 10% cut sounds like a lot, I'm the largest technology Substack, and I'm telling you that it's worth it, right? And so, like, that's sort of like, you can think, oh, I can save the 10%, but actually the growth is all there.
Hell yeah.
That's
Well,
sort of and that's what Substack is great. Is I've hired multiple Substackers, by the way, right? So there's Substacks out there that are dead, but that's because they work at SemiAnalysis now, because there's passionate people out there who are writing
yeah.
cool work. And so
Doesn't
it's
kind of
like,
turn in that case,
like,
but
just recently hired an energy Substack guy. Yeah, exactly.
um, that's fantastic. Well, thank you for the kind words. Thank you for using Substack. We love having you. Everyone should subscribe to SemiAnalysis. Hit the little subscribe button that's on your screen. But is there anything else you want to say or plug?
Um, I think, yeah, I mean, it's Substack is an awesome platform. You guys know there's things that you guys have to work on, but the nice thing is you are fast to work on them, right? Hey, this feature, does it, obviously you have your own roadmap and vision, so sometimes feature requests are dumb. But you have your own roadmap and vision, and you guys ship fast, right? That's the other thing that's really exciting, is like, hey, here's XYZ. Sometimes it's like, no, we're not going to do that. But sometimes it's like, yeah, it's available now or next week, right? And so that's also the other thing I'd like to plug. But yeah, I mean, check out our posts. We cover a broad range of stuff. Check out socials, like me and SemiAnalysis on all the socials. And then also, if you're at a company and you think you need help with anything in AI models, infrastructure adoption, fabrication, from a technology basis or a market research basis, we've got all these data sets. Schedule a call with sales at SemiAnalysis. Yes.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much and welcome back.
Thank you so much. Bye.